What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to a new video. So this is a topic that I get asked very often. I like to do these videos simply because, like I said, these questions, people are always DMing me, people are always asking me in the comments on YouTube. They always seem to reach out and kind of ask very similar questions. So making these detailed, specific question videos, I think it really helps people. So these are kind of videos that I really like to do and just kind of help people out, because I know if I was on the other side of it, I would love to have somebody like myself kind of giving the answers, giving their opinions, and just kind of help them along in the process. So now that we know that the STI is no longer being produced and that the 2021 is the last generation of the STI, at least for now, we can't buy new STIs. It's as simple as that. It's just not possible anymore. They stopped production, they stopped making them, so they stopped taking orders. So only option for you guys right now, if you want to get into an STI or a WRX, is to buy one used. And there's a lot of questions that can be had when people are buying a used STI, especially. That goes along with WRXs as well. But STIs especially, there's so many questions that people have when buying new. What to look out for? Are there certain modifications that I should stay away from? What do I actually need to keep in mind when I'm looking for my dream STI? So that is what we're actually going to discuss in this video. I've come up with 5 different points that you guys should look for when you're looking for your used WRX or STI. Number 1. The first thing that you should actually look for is very straightforward, very simple. You don't have to do anything with the actual car, but that is actually getting the Carfax. Yes, I know Carfaxes aren't the most reliable source, but they give you a good idea as to what the car, the history of it, what happened to it, if there's any accidents, just kind of, the maintenance in some ways. Some people actually still do take their cars to the dealer, and anytime that there is a service done or anything, anytime that it's brought to the dealer, that gets recorded, that gets put on a Carfax. So it's a good indication just of the previous owner or owners, how well they took care of the car, if there was any issues, if they got them sorted out. Usually the ones that do have a decent amount of history, nothing crazy, no accidents obviously, but something that, has religious oil changes, tire rotations, that kind of stuff, as a good indication that the previous owner or owners took good care of the car. So that is definitely something you want to check out and look into. You can obviously purchase them online yourself, or you can actually go to the dealer and get the Carfax for free if it's for sale at a dealer. Also, if you do check out the Carfax and there's no maintenance history or nothing really on it other than it just being registered, and the car was purchased and what have you, that kind of basic stuff, that is usually Carfaxes that I like to stay away from. Granted, the owner probably did the maintenance themselves, but honestly, that kind of stuff is, it gets a little weary because you don't know what kind of oil they used. You don't know that their oil change intervals. You're not really aware of that kind of stuff, and it can get really fishy. So if there's zero history on the Carfax or very little, obviously I would kind of stay away from that. If there's an accident or damage, I usually kind of stay away from those, so I suggest you do as well. I understand that a damaged or a minor accident Carfax report will lower the cost of the car, but I assure you, even though it was a small accident, you never honestly know what happened. And even though you got the car cheaper at a better price, it could end up being the most expensive car you've ever owned in the long run. Number 2, it kind of feeds off of Carfax, but we're going to go into a little bit more depth, and that is maintenance history. Now, for me, any car that I have ever owned in my life, I have kept an Excel spreadsheet. And what I mean by that is anything that I have ever done to any of my cars, whether it's maintenance, whether it's a modification, even the mileage, I keep an Excel spreadsheet of every single little thing done to this car. And for me, it has really helped sell my cars in the future. It's a really good seller's tool because the potential buyers or potentially the new owners, they can see every single thing that was done. It's a great tactic, a great tool, not only for selling, but it's also great for you. For me, I record every 1,000 miles that I do. So anytime that I do 1,000 miles, I record that. I write down the mileage and I write down the date. So I know exactly just how many miles I was driving at that point in my life with this car or any car for that matter. Any maintenance that I do, I record that. I have different columns of what work was done, what was used, the cost of it, the mileage. I have all that stuff written down. And, it's great for me just to look back on it and just see all the maintenance history. But again, as a buyer, I would love to have all of that information right in front of me, knowing exactly what was done, when it was done, what mileage. So basically, the new owner could literally just purchase the car and then just continue on with that really, really religious maintenance history and just not have any questions. If they're like, oh, when was the last oil change made? They can literally look on that sheet, see the mileage, see what I paid for it, anything like that. So it is a really good seller's tool. So I encourage you to look for a seller that has something like that really, really shows the history of the car. It's very, very rare to find that, but any car that I have purchased used in the past, I have actually come across those kind of sellers. And honestly, I've never in my life had a bad car. They all have been great. They all have treated me well because I took my time and found something with maintenance history and somebody that really, really took care of the car. Number 3, this is something that's going to be a little bit more difficult to do. And the only reason for that is because you're actually going to need a mechanic or somebody that you can trust, or even yourself to get this done. And what that actually is to actually do a leak down test. It's not that hard. You have to pull the spark plugs, get a proper leak down test kit, and crank the car over and make sure the compression in all the cylinders is consistent. Obviously, if you find something that has a really low compression, that's a good indication to get the hell out of there. Don't buy that car. Don't even think about it, and kind of move on with your search. Because a compression test will tell you right away if the car is good or not. You obviously don't want to invest all this money that you have been saving to buy a car like this just to find out in a few months or few days or whatever it may happen that it is a bad motor, that has bad compression. The previous owner did a bunch of stuff, lied about it, and now you are stuck with this giant paperweight, giant, very expensive paperweight that you are going to have to fix because you obviously want to drive the car. And if you ever want to sell it, you're obviously going to have to fix it. So you never want to end up in that situation. So if you have the ability to do a PPI, which means a pre-purchase inspection with a mechanic, with a shop, even yourself, if you have the ability to do it, I highly encourage to do a leak down test. The 4th tip, and something that you should be looking at when you are looking at a used STI, especially with an EJ motor, is an AOS. And the reason why I mention that is because if an AOS is not installed, that's a good indication that, again, they just didn't know, or they didn't really care for the car. Now, if you open the hood, you don't see an AOS, don't panic. Odds are that they maybe did have one on the car, but they removed it to sell it when they went to sell the car, and they wanted to make a few bucks back selling off the AOS. But a good way to actually figure out if there was an AOS installed and just the kind of the condition that is in is actually remove the little throttle body hose here. It is a little bit of a pain in the butt with the top mount intercooler, but removing this piece right here is a good way to figure out if there was an AOS ever installed. If it's clean, if there's no oil in it, you're good. However, if you take that piece off and you check in the throttle body or even in that hose, and there's oil residue and it kind of just pooling up right there, that's a good indication that there was never an AOS installed. The previous owner or owners never even really cared to install one or even knew that it was an issue. So that is definitely something to look for. It's a very, very easy thing to do and to pop off if you want to check it out and go a little bit deeper to figure out if the motor was taken care of or the car in general. So I definitely would pop that little throttle body hose off and check if there's any pooling of oil. Just to kind of expand upon that a little bit, what I mean by oil there is just the blow-by. Turbo cars in general, there is blow-by that does happen, and that blow-by is not good for certain components like the intake, the intercooler, your turbo. So if you do see pooling in this little hose right here or in the throttle body, I would probably go look elsewhere and try to find something else. So the 5th tip that you guys should be looking for, number 5, is right here, and that is a Cobb access port. Obviously, if you see this sitting on the dash, somewhere in the car, in the glove box, in the armrest right here, wherever it may be, that is a good indication that this car has been tuned, it has been modified, it hasn't been stock in its entire life. And depending on what you're looking for in an STI or WRX, I would definitely run, stay away, look elsewhere if you see a Cobb access port anywhere in the car, because like I said, it's a good indication that the car has been modified. Now, I'm going to expand upon that a little bit more, simply because if you're looking for a car, say if you're looking to buy my car, you wanted something modified that was tastefully done and, you know, used all reputable parts, that's a little bit different. But if you're just strolling on the Subaru dealer or any dealer for that matter, and you see an access port just kind of floating around in the car, that is something to be worried about. You know, if you pop open the hood, you see a random intake floating there. You see a blow-off valve sitting right here, not a bypass valve. You see a blow-off valve. Anything that looks not stock. You know, get familiar with how this engine looks. So when you pop the hood, you'll be able to tell right away if something is different. And if you see something a little fishy, some wires popping out somewhere, or something that doesn't look stock, then again, that is something that I would personally run away from. I wouldn't really, you know, pursue that specific car. For me, if I'm looking for an STI, any car for that matter, I want to find something completely stock. I want to find something that has a completely blank slate, that has no history of any modifications done, so I can personally start the modification journey myself. I have all the stock parts to either go back to if I ever end up selling the car, or I can sell off if I decide to, you know, keep that specific part and I find that it works better or looks better, whatever. I want to have that option. I don't want to be in a situation where, you know, I don't have the stock parts and there's all random aftermarket parts. Who knows how the car was tuned? Who knows how the car drives? You know, any modification done will really put a sour taste in my mouth. And I highly suggest trying to find something that is completely stock from under the hood, inside the car, underneath, everywhere. You just want a completely stock WRX or STI. Now, don't get me wrong, modified cars in general still, they kind of stick out to me more than stock cars. Just because I kind of prefer modified cars over stock. They just appeal to me a little bit more, and you know, it's kind of cool to see what a car can look like that I'm kind of you know, in pursuit of. But I highly suggest, especially an STI with an EJ motor in it, I highly suggest trying to find something as stock as possible. Your overall experience and ownership is just going to be that much better, and it really doesn't leave you scratching your head saying like, why did the previous owner put this on or do this? Is it tuned right? Is it tuned for this modification? Because you never know. It really is kind of leaves you scratching your head. And like I said, I understand the appeal of finding and wanting to purchase a modified STI. I assure you, you know, even if it looks cool or it's something that you may put on in the future, I definitely recommend kind of staying away from those and trying to find something where nothing has been done. So yeah, those are my 5 tips and tricks and 5 things that I would look out for when I am purchasing a used WRX or STI. Obviously, those things can vary. You obviously want to check all the paintwork and everything, make sure there's no body panels painted or any damage or anything like that, kind of the obvious stuff. But I wanted to name 5 specific things, you know, specifically for WRX or STI, because like I said, I get asked this question a lot, and now that STIs are no longer being made and you can't put your order in, a used STI is the only option that you can get. There's no more new ones unless you find something sitting on the lot that has been there forever, which is probably going to be very expensive at this point. You know, your only choice is to find something used, and hopefully you can find it with as little mileage as possible, with one owner that has really taken care of the car, has no modifications, and it just was very well maintained. I promise you'll have a really good ownership. You'll enjoy it much more. So even if it takes a little bit longer to find that unicorn, to find that exact one I'm talking about, take your time. Don't rush through it, because if you rush and you get something that you sacrificed on, I assure you it is going to be the most expensive car you have ever owned, and you don't want to do that. You want to enjoy the car. You want something fun. You want something that will be reliable. So take those 5 tips that I just named when you're on your hunt for your WRX or STI, and if you are able to do all 5 of them, you're in good shape. If they check all the boxes and you're good with everything, you're going to have a great car. That's all I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this helps you in your search. If you have any more questions or you have any other tips that you may think of or any other specific things to look for, leave them in the comments below for other people. It will greatly help those people as well when they're on their hunt for their WRX or STI. But that's all I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions at all, be sure to ask them in the comments below. But in the meantime, keep it clean, keep it simple, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.